Welcome to the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about BC Camplight and his record, A Sober Conversation. He released that on June 27th. This is the 7th studio album from the artist, whose real name is Brian Crescenzio, and his follow-up to 2023's The Last Rotation of Earth. BC Camplight is an artist that I admittedly was not familiar with before doing this thing, and I want to thank all of you for reaching out. There was a number of you that recommended this album, that said I should review it, and I always take that as a good sign. You guys were absolutely correct. I don't know what I'd do without all of you, and I certainly would love to hear from all of you about your favorite BC projects, or if you have any great stories about live performances, etc. It's always great to read all of that in the comments. I'll say, after digging into his catalog and particularly enjoying the hell out of Deportation Blues and Blink of an Nihilist, I feel like A Sober Conversation is a record that is worthy of being discussed as a career highlight. And it might be his best to date, which is actually saying quite a bit. But these 9 compositions are arranged by a man who seems to have confident and absolute control of his craft, a clear vision on how every meticulously orchestrated moment should be executed. I want to start by talking about the production. Is absolutely outstanding. I particularly love the understated layers of rhythm guitar that run throughout this thing. And also that the way the production is used to enhance the storytelling. I think Opener, The Tent, is a perfect example when the title's hook just hits and the song just feels like it veers off a cliff into this harrowing moment, capturing the horror of what happened to him in that tent. It's spine-chilling, but so effective. And as far as the overall sound, I love the comparisons that I've seen to Todd Rundgren. I dig that. I think for me, there's this blend of a guy like Jonathan Wilson and Panda Bear at work in his sound. And I think at their core, these tracks are all rooted within a rock and roll framework, but it's the variety of instrumentation working throughout A Sober Conversation that calls to mind countless influences. And the result is an album that is unpredictable and absolutely gorgeous. There are lush layers of strings. His performance on the piano and all the other keys are fantastic. The horns are great, and they all give this record a big classic pop feel. Really call to mind a lot what was going on in the 70s. And I know a lot of people are giving this record that pop label, but I feel like to just do that sells short all of its mesmerizing, experimental, and psychedelic qualities. It almost kind of feels like if you just called the Beatles music pop music. There's just so much more here. There's a great blend of folk, chamber pop, jazz, and world music, especially with all the percussion that's at work here. Another one of my favorite elements. And I just want to applaud the numerous musicians that contributed to the rich textures of this record. Everybody's performance is just spot on. I think that BC's music has always demonstrated a desire to work with a multitude of sounds, but it's the cohesion of this record from start to finish that represents the culmination of a quarter century's worth of writing and a keen attention to what hit the mark in the past and what needed to be fine-tuned. I think that the eccentric and cinematic nature of these songs provides the perfect balance to counter the weight of the record's themes, because this thing is going to really take you into some dark territory. And given everything that's going on, it doesn't really seem out of line to categorize this thing in all of its grandeur as a rock opera. I know that term kind of has a stigma, but throw that out the door. The weight of this album's themes are so well balanced by his sardonic approach to writing about life's hardships, exploring the trauma and heartbreak of issues that I think are universally relatable, like the collapse of a long-term relationship. That's what he was doing with his last record, but he's also never been one to shy away from using music as a means to cope with pain that is more personal and difficult to address. For fans, I hope none of you have experienced the level of what he's gone through. But even if you haven't experienced that level of trauma, there's the vulnerability and humor in his candor that appeals to all in terms of how difficult it can be to face down any of our demons. And I think what makes A Sober Conversation stand out from previous efforts is the comprehensive and poetic manner that he uses to dig deep into his past, to bravely confront the sexual abuse that he was subjected to as a child and the subsequent struggle with substance abuse to cope that has turned into a lifelong battle for him. The imagery in these songs is vivid and so heartbreaking, but it's a massive part of what makes these tracks so captivating. And while the record does take its listener into a dark world, it doesn't neglect the importance of pursuing hope and trying to find happiness. Because I think, like, what would be the point of doing anything, let alone creating this beautiful record, if one wasn't trying to exorcise past demons in order to find peace and purpose in life? I think ultimately the execution of that idea in this record is outstanding and so well done. This record opens with The Tent. It's going to start with this ominous fade in, subdued instrumentation that flutters in the background, and those footsteps that, like, it's just so eerie. He doesn't waste any time setting the tone, and the lyrics on this thing as it progresses are particularly haunting. It all stops momentarily with that intro before piano enters to completely change this thing up, completely upend it. There's lots of playful percussion elements, both natural and electronic, with a catchy lick driven by a wah pedal. And then it sounds like an accordion. I don't think it actually is, but there's this accordion-like element that goes to work intermittently, ushering in BC's vocals. It's a psychedelic sounding track, but also very pop driven. Just a gorgeous combination of sounds. And then it gets, as I said, really sinister with the hook in The Tent. Even given the intro, I just was not expecting this moment. And then as the song progresses, there are a number of psychedelic elements that work throughout the song. A great build into a high energy coda that soars almost kind of ironically with gospel-like energy and with lyrics that these are, some people face the music, quote, some people face the floor boy. Some people take moments, some people take them back, take them back, take them back. Still just absolutely floored every time I hear this. It's really intense, but I think this track is just the perfect way to really start this thing off and give you an idea what you're about to get into. Your second track is entitled Two-Legged Dog. Picks up the energy with a groovy retro sound. There's jazz, classic pop, bossa nova at play on this thing. Percussion and piano are brilliant once again on this track as well. The song progresses through moments where the music is strong behind vocals and then fades when BC stops singing. And then the track just focuses on the rhythm section there. I really like the bass and drums at play. And the harmonies from Abigail Morris, are outstanding. Around the minute and 30 mark, the track takes a rapturous turn with hard driving, bright piano, and celestial textures almost. It feels a bit like a religious experience, and then the track just shifts abruptly back to its groovy sensibilities, with Abigail taking the lead on the vocals. The song returns to soaring heights once more before going to coda with that groovy element and a big refrain of the title. Leading into your third track, your title track, A Sober Conversation, is a song that starts with a little drum count. It's going to usher in a track with more of a conventional rock and roll feel, I'd say, more than any of these songs, even though I did say that there is that rock foundation. There's driving piano and rhythm. Love the guitars on this one especially, complemented by the breezy, jaunty nature of the song itself. The chorus takes a shift into lighter territory with a bright, droning cathedral-like synth. And then the song shifts into a third section. It's led by a big drum roll and vocal harmonies. And then it just doubles down on that bright instrumentation with a nice bit of psychedelia that's at play here. Track is going to move back into the verse with lots of layers of guitar, building to chorus, and then it hits this grungy territory almost around the 2 minute and 30-second mark. There's lots of feedback, these staccato riffs that are playing, and big drums. The guitars drop to feature vocals and drum for just a moment before going big into the coda to finish this thing off and leading into your fourth track, When I Make My First Million. It's going to open with great piano and vocals that enter shortly after. You got this gorgeous flute that works to usher in mid-tempo rhythm. Really like that element. And then the track begins to swell and build momentum around the minute and 15-second mark or so, but it ultimately restrains itself, with the flute taking the lead in front of beautiful acoustic rhythm and twinkly percussive elements. The track finally does go big around the 2 minute and 45-second mark with big horn-driven orchestration, and then it takes a dark turn for just a moment, finishing with piano and vocals on the hook that is there in the title. Your fifth track is entitled Where You Taking My Baby. Opens with piano that has this classical cinematic flair. And I know it sounds cheesy, but like you can almost picture BC with a powdered wig just hammering away by candlelight. Like it really has that kind of like classical sensibility. And then chugging guitars hit to bring great rock and roll energy with light vocal melodies and percussion. I love the synth that works between lines in the verses and the fuzzy texture that's there as well. Its impact is felt even more in the cleaner production of the chorus. I really like that kind of shift there. And with the breezy acoustic guitars that are working. Second verse finds more energy with the percussion beefed up, and then you get loads of instrumentation that just builds into this song. I'd say at about the halfway point, the track makes a frenetic jump with drums, piano, and vocals that come right at you with so much intensity, with the track shifting into mellow and minimal territory with just piano and vocals for a brief period. I love just the shift in instrumentation and momentum on these songs. The coda returns to high energy and familiar melodies throughout the song. Like that return to form there. It's a highlight for me, I think, leading into your sixth track, Bubbles in the Gasoline. You get this brief sound of water and voices that are going to usher in bright, jaunty piano and percussion. You got a unique bass lick with a fun little slide that works in. Enjoyed that. As strings are added to the mix shortly after. It feels stripped down in comparison to the other tracks at first, but then it transitions into a groovy chorus with just a great dynamic of light and dark melodies. Lots going on here when the song hits that point. Abigail goes to work in the second verse once more. She's just great, as are the big swells of strings that work around her vocals. And then BC takes the reins on the second go of the chorus. The track closes with that bright piano at the forefront with droning strings and almost kind of this like conversation style vocal with him and Abigail. It's a really fun element to that track. Your seventh song is entitled Rock Gently in Disorder. Another highlight for me. Opens with a brief a cappella vocal before a classic pop and jazz piano works in. It opens with the lines, picture your favorite dream, puppies and running free with all your perfect friends, and then pretend someone took it from you. And then he goes on to sing, so this is how you do it. Play safely in your ruin. Lay rested in the trap. Lay wasted on the tracks. Love deeply in the grave. Dance softly on the blade. The man is just mesmerizing with his words. And the trauma of feeling like everything good can just be stripped away from you instantly is one that I think most of us can identify with. I think we've all had something taken from us like that, making this one of the more powerful tracks for me. I think that both elements play with space on this thing around one another brilliantly. There's sparse drum play and supplementary keys that work in that are just absolutely great before the track pops with this brooding rhythm on one piano and lighter play on another. It all mellows, shifting back to this kind of like classic bossa nova and jazz feel with a stop and go groove. Then you get this hard driving rhythm piano that appears once more to take us into this chaotic, hard-hitting coda. Definitely a phenomenal and powerful talk. Your penultimate track, your 8th song, is entitled Drunk Talk. It's got this gentle vocal and piano that open with classic pop flair and subtle horn play in the backdrop that gives this track this really just gorgeous kind of noir feel. Definitely more minimal than most of these tracks, but the strength of the storytelling is really allowed to shine here through rich melodies rooted in dark terrain. The song is going to work into crescendo with hard-hitting piano. It's another great feature in a lot of these songs. I just really like when he goes after it. He gets swelling horns as well, but then the thing, it chills, keeping you on your toes, just like everything else in this record. And then your 9th and final track, Leaving Camp for Oaks, begins with the sound of a 10-zipper and the pleasant white noise of nature. And for those of you that like to camp, that just like to go out, it's one of my favorite sounds. It's so peaceful, and it is perfect in the way that it stands in glaring contrast to this record, and especially with the opener, the tent. You just get this full circle moment here with this track. Psychedelic droning elements appear along with sparse piano element and light horns, and there are no words. And honestly, how could there be at this point? It's a brilliant way to close a record that feels like its creation has allowed its creator to come to terms with a lot of this trauma. Not all of it, and I don't think it's anything that'll ever be fully fixed, but beginning that catharsis. I think this album avoids that kind of cliche territory that can often be ascribed to the idea of trauma driving the best art, but his writing is so deft and so humorous, and it's like I said, the imagery is so vivid. It is just from start to finish, this thing is one of the most captivating experiences I think that you will have in 2025. The power of it, just the magnitude of everything that he's able to bring together and to construct, dare I say, almost perfectly. 35 minutes, 9 tracks. This thing is from start to finish. There's no filler. Like, every moment matters. Every moment just grabs you and demands your attention. And like I said, I think that this could very well be the best thing that he has put out to date. And I want to thank you all once again for encouraging me to listen to this record. I'm glad that BC Camplight is now on my radar. I cannot wait to pick this thing up on vinyl, and I'm going to give this record an 8.7 out of 10. I really hope that all of you enjoy listening to this record if you haven't already, and I hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.